Yeah, I caught most of my fish today on a Picasso schoolie rig. It's their version of the Alabama rig. And I actually caught a couple big ones on an Omega football jig that had brown rubber and green pitzel. And the key to that was I was stroking the bait. Where everybody else was dragging their jigs, I'd get a couple big bites a day doing that.
To be good on the Tennessee River, you have to understand stroking. Stroking is snatching a bait off the bottom. You don't just drag and hop a bait. You actually snatch it and you really rip it off the bottom and let it sink back down. This is a Omega football head jig. This is where Creek Channel intersects the main river channel. That's a classic ledge spot on the Tennessee River. So as I was understanding what was going on, you got a school of fish that are kind of suspended off the bottom, and so when you stroke a bait, you get it up in their face. They're 5, 6, 7, 8 feet off the bottom, and by stroking the bait, you get them to bite. And that's why there's a spoon bite on the Tennessee River, and it speaks to the crankbait bite as well. But I'm a swimbait guy. So when I started understanding what was going on and what baits were catching fish, that's where and when and why I went to the Big Hammer swimbait. So let me take you out west. I'm going to take you to Southern California, my hometown, and show you what's going on in the saltwater world when it comes to deep offshore swimbait fishing. This is Lower Trestles, probably one of the best surf spots in the country, and a great way for me to show you what guys are doing with Big Hammer swimbaits in the ocean.
Calico, working a little kelp point here, letting it sink down, slow grind in. They're just eating it.
Tell me about your rod and reel and set. Tell me about the braid and all the stuff.
Using 50-pound Power Pro, Dobbins 806 rod, and a Corrado 200 DHSB.
So how much leader do you tie?
5-6 feet. Work down from there. Usually retie down to a couple of feet left. And they're on it. When they want it, they want it.
And where are we right now? Where are we fishing?
We're off of San Clemente Pier, out in about 50 feet of water. Water 65 degrees. Fish are chewing.
Hell yeah.
They wanna bust a nose skid. I need some cash, the gas, the Tesla got a bass. I think I might have fucked it with a pain in the ass.
The hammer. Oh man, he just choked that thing.
Yeah, Bryce.
Right.
Tell us about it.
Tell you about this calico. We're on the Christmas Tree Rock. Caught it on this is a sardine Big Hammer. Using a Calcutta rod, Calcutta reel.
Bradley just hooked one. No?
He swallowed it deep. Yeah, we're kind of right on the edge of LA, Orange County.
So John, how deep are we fishing?
Looks like 84 feet right now.
And tell me about the rig you're fishing.
Fishing Big Hammer, just Big Hammer head, 1.5 ounce with the key line, body attached to it, 5.5 inch.
Saltwater fishermen know that the Big Hammer with the exposed lead head is a great deep water swim bait setup. It's a system. You can get a bait down deep. You can maintain bottom contact. You can swim it. You can jig it. You can hop it. It can also be a big swim jig like the Warbait Slayer swim jig. But the bottom line is a soft swim bait tail plus an exposed lead head is a lethal way to catch deep bass. And it was lessons from the Pacific Ocean that were sitting in the back of my mind when I was on Kentucky Lake. And it wasn't until I started stroking the swim bait, kind of blending what I'd learned about the football head jig and the spoon bite on the Tennessee River and integrating it with what I knew from the ocean.
From the start.
All right, let's talk about the 5-inch hammer real quick. I got a 1-ounce head, base melt color, fishing 20-pound P line. Probably get by with a low profile reel, but I'm finding you need a lot of line, you break off a lot. But it's just been a windy time since I've been here, so I'm fighting the wind, ledge fishing. But the key to this bait is the hop. Kind of stroking the swim bait on these ledges. I'm fishing I got the boat in about 22 to 25, maybe even 30, but you want to throw up into 9, 10 in places, maybe 15 in places, and work it off whatever break you can find. Some of them are full-blown ledges, some of them are just, gradual points. But you find them, you get them fired up with this swim bait, you can catch a couple in a hurry. But this is just something new to me. I'm totally stoked on exploring is this ledge fishing with the swim bait. The big hammer's been coming through big time. Just a really unique application. But that big old lead head, you can hop it, and you can always maintain body contact. There's heads up to 1.5 ounces and some things I've been playing with, so you can, even in the wind, you're always making bottom contact, and the fishability is there, which is huge. So sorry about the wind. Gonna just go fishing now, see what happens.
So when you throw your bait out, let it sink all the way to the bottom. Keep your rod tip high. Snatch the bait off the bottom. The fish are going to catch it on the way back down. That's why the heavy lead head gives you a better swim on the way down. The big hammer swims along, but when you sink it out, it really swims well because of the heavy lead, and gravity pulls it back down to the bottom, and you get a great swim out of your bait on the sink, and that's key to understand. Big hammer is just a perfect bait for the big exposed offshore fishing that ledge fishing is. You're always fighting the wind, boat position, trying to maintain contact with your bait. And that's why this bait just was a perfect fit and a perfect system for the Tennessee River. You'll always hear a lot about shell beds on the Tennessee River. And it's kind of interesting. The big hammer, you can really feel shell beds. You can kind of crunch along and you'll get the feel for what shells feel like. And typically that's where the fish are. You find a ledge with shells on it, or a point, or a high spot that's got good shells and maybe current break or what have you. Throw your big hammer and stroke it there. But I found the big hammer actually will pick up shells. Something about the shape of a pyramid-shaped lead head, you'll actually get shells on the front of your bait. We call them hammer helmets. But understand, the big hammer is just a great way to kind of search and find shell beds. When you fish the ledges of the Tennessee River, you're going to be in exposed main lake water. I'm out here where the creek channel meets the main river channel. You literally use the buoy just to kind of orient the boat in your cast, and this is an obvious spot, and you can throw a football head jig there and maybe catch a few, but the swim bait was just catching more fish, and I was getting better quality fish. Kentucky Lake isn't a place where you got to go out and catch 20 pounds a day to win. 15 pounds a day, 17 pounds a day is solid. Look at the tournament history there the last few years on the offshore June ledge bite in the FLW Tour. 17 pounds a day is what it takes to win. But this bait, I think, complements the football head jig, the spoon, the 6XD crankbait bite. Show them something bigger. Show them something different. See what happens. It's just so fishable, and it so matches up with this ledge fishing. I was super excited about it, and I've been sitting on this information, but I kind of have come to terms that I'm probably not fishing the FLW Tour anytime soon again, and they're not going back to Kentucky Lake. And just from a professional courtesy, I don't ever try to release stuff ahead of a tournament or an event or be kind of a know-it-all. I'm certainly not a know-it-all. I'm learning as I'm going. And to me, this is just the first step here. Like, hey man, I got on a 5-inch big hammer swimbait bite, and I was stroking a swimbait. That was pretty cool, but there's so much more to explore and talk about. You know, there's plenty of things I'm going to share here in a second with what I would do if I lived on Kentucky Lake, how I would go approach the ledges. But watch right here. This is what a swimbait on the ledges will do for you. This is how you cull the 15, 17 pounds. I was getting 1 or 2 of these bites a day. Too little too late for me I didn't put this bite together till day 2 of the tournament. It just clicked. I had 15 pounds the day 2 of the FLW Tour in 2011. If I hadn't have been so blind and stupid, I could have made a real good tournament out of it.
Hang on. That is a good big hammerfish. We were fishing the ledge and then we slid back and are hitting the other creek channel on the other side, where creek channel comes in the main river channel, hitting both points. That is what you're capable of doing with this bait. A man could win 25 pounds. You can get him on that swim bait here.
This is the local swim bait. You go into the bait and tackle shops. This is the big bait that guys throw, and certainly guys catch fish on this style of bait. But when you have a plastic body that surrounds the lead, it's just different, and that's what I'm trying to communicate. And it has to do with the swim you can put in it, the stroke that you can put on it, because you got a faster rate of fall. That big hammer swim bait right there is going to sink out and fall a lot faster than the picture of the kind a little bit ago. Whenever you've got the kind of a plastic around lead or a harness material, it's much more buoyant. And this big hammer falls straight down. I mean, that lead head just drags it right to the bottom. You know, it's a real quick sinker. So you can go from having a straight grind to a sink out to a drop bait, and you know you can kind of slow roll it where you really just maintain bottom contact. So it's like a deep diving dredge bait as well if you want it to be. You can just drag it along, and when you've got 1.5, 2 ounces to work with, you know, if you're only in 8 to 15 feet of water, you can really dredge the bottom. And that's what's, you know, the dredge bite, the stroke bite. Those are the little tricks of the trade on the Tennessee River, I'm realizing. And so as it applies to swimbait fishing, that's why I was so excited about this. And you know, I've got so much I want to do with my fishing and swimbait fishing. You know, the Tennessee River, and this is only just, again, another part of a much bigger conversation. Let's take a step back and talk big picture. You need to check out Warbaits. These are 1, 1.5, 2 ounce swim jigs. Think about what we're doing here, stroking swim baits, and the fact that a heavy swim jig makes it not only a swimming bait, but a stroking bait that's got the advantages of having a skirt. Let's face it, fish eat skirted baits really well. And you can add a big hammer tail, add a Robo Ocean Tail. That's a swim bait tail from Robo Worm. You know, one's got a square tail, one's got more of a rounded tail. One's more of a big thumper and a real drastic swim. The other's a little bit more subtle for me. The Robo Worm is just a beautiful swimming bait that fits these heads wonderfully. And so I kind of have a 1-2 punch with the big hammer and the Robo baits, and I match them to these different war baits. You've got swim jigs and just lead heads without skirts. But you'll find that these baits are just, you know, gorgeous colors. They match up really well. And I'm just kind of sharing, if I lived on the Tennessee River, and at times of the year I try to and I do, but if I was going to spend a lot of time on the Tennessee River, you need to have a couple different tails on your swim baits. You need to be approaching it with, I think these big swim jigs are going to take off. I really think this is something that's just a sleeper, and not and when you couple it with this whole stroking a swim bait conversation, I had very limited experience on the Tennessee River doing this stuff, but when I did it, I got on them immediately, and you've got such good options when it comes to different bait sizes and weights, and so you can do it with just a swim bait, or add the swim jig flavor. And I've really fallen in love with these Warbaits. They're really catching the West by fire. You pay attention to the Pacific Ocean stuff, but they're catching good fish. This was a huge halibut. I hate that I killed that fish, but it didn't go to waste. These baits are big baits. When you've got a bait like the sledgehammer, it's that's a 9-inch long swim bait tail on a 2-ounce swim jig head. You're doing something in the big bait department, which is going for the big bite. And with the limited experience I had on Kentucky Lake, I threw these bigger baits out there at times and would just immediately catch a big one. You know what I mean? First cast, if I found a school I was catching, 15, 17 inchers, then all of a sudden, bang, I throw out there and catch like a 4 or 5 pounder on the first cast with the big bait on the same angle cast to the same school. So there's a big bait attraction where you get that alpha big dog, first time a big bait swims through the school, look out, because I don't know. I thought it was just awesome. And there's so much to do with swim bait fishing, and this is only one thing. It's not just Tennessee River specific, but I think when I speak Tennessee River, other anglers can connect and realize what I'm trying to say. This is something, I mean, gosh, I'm sure it would work at Champlain. I'm sure it would work at the Ozark reservoirs. I'm working on it right now too. I mean, it can be open water, it can be, rock, it can be rivers, but the Tennessee River certainly is a great fit for these baits. So, the Robo Ocean Tails, the big hammer swim baits, the Warbait swim jigs, that's the approach. If I lived on Kentucky Lake year round, I would be working on those baits. And of course I'd kind of be combining it into the Alabama rig, the umbrella rigs, right? All that kind of thing. So to me, that's, deep swim bait fishing, how to catch swim bait fish offshore, suspended fish. These are the tools that I would be definitely probing around with. I mean, I have some experience on Kentucky Lake and Guntersville and Pickwick and Wilson and Wheeler. It's an interesting place to fish, the Tennessee River, but stroking a bait, really snatching it off the bottom and getting a fish to bite it on the way down. It's a reaction bite, and it's really cool, and it's something I've kind of been applying in other places. And it's something I plan on sharing in a couple of other scenarios of fishing where I find this thing works. But from a swim bait perspective, to really snatch it and snap it and let it fall fast, the rate of fall being real critical to the bite. Just something really neat to kind of learn, and it was disappointing, of course, that I didn't put it together until day 2 of the tournament. And if I would have put the stroke bite plus the swim bait on the first day of the tournament, I could have done really well. But that's how it goes. That's the trip that I'm on, and I'm gonna keep working at it. And there's just so much to talk about. In 3 lifetimes, I'll never be able to fish and do everything I want to do. And I'm just into having conversation backed by footage and film, because I'm a swim bait guy and this is what I do. Let me know how you do out there on the Tennessee River, anywhere else on these hammers, these Robo Tails, or Warbait swim jigs. I think this stuff is just going to be awesome as guys adopt it. It's not always going to be a stroking a swim bait kind of a bite, but give it a try. When you're in a spot or a point, or you feel like the fish are there, but for some reason they're not biting, if they get suspended, however many feet off the bottom, try ripping a swim bait through them and letting it sink back down the bottom, and just see what that does. This stroking thing is just a new tool, a new trick I have to catch some fish. It's not always going to be the ticket, especially we got the Alabama rig, and there's just always a lot of change and dynamics with all these things. But stroking swim baits was clearly a way to catch good fish on the Tennessee River. I know guys on Guntersville are throwing single swim baits and catching big sacks. That exposed lead is a real good way to go. Feel free to glue the bait to the head. That'll help you with bait management. The baits are super resilient, and you'll get a lot of life out of them. But if you glue them before fishing, then you'll get even more life out of them. I'd probably approach with 50-pound or 65-pound braid now. I'd probably have a 20 to 25-pound mono leader. I'm just a huge fan of braid and all the advantages. I was using 20-pound P line in the video here. I had a big old wide Calcutta 300 TE, I think it was, reel. You know, just was fishing the copolymer, but I've since kind of gone to braid across the board, and I'm using braid with mono and fluorocarbon leaders and really liking it. And I think that would be the way to go. You can get a bait down. You've got a great color selection. You've got a bunch of heads, the Warbait swim jigs. But this is something I wanted to share for a while. I finally got around to getting this thing put together, and I was, I felt good that I'm not, there wasn't a tour event or something I was maybe shooting myself in the foot for next year, or, I'm just into talking about swim baits and things and experiences I learned, and this was something completely new to me. I mean, you can see the fish snatching it out of mid-air or mid-water. Fun way to catch them. Instead of just throwing a football head out there or a spoon, mix this one into your bag of tricks. See if you can't catch some better quality fish, because, anywhere 15, 17 pounds a day is good fish. I mean, just fun fishing.
Try to find the school and stay on them. Again, just a keeper, not a giant.
There's a lot of colors, sizes, and water to explore yet. This is just kind of a first look at what I was calling stroking a swim bait. I found it to be a real effective, pattern or technique on the Tennessee River, on Kentucky Lake. But I think any of the Tennessee River lakes this will work. But kind of just, it's part of my fishing repertoire now. It's part of my retrieves I try as I'm fishing, this stroking thing. It's a real interesting technique. I want to thank my buddy Brian Somrick, he's the guy in the boat with me here. Stayed at Brian's house, and he's just a great guy. He loves fishing, and was as stoked as I was about the, what we were figuring out, what we were putting together. It was new to me, it was new to him, and we're kind of learning and having fun. So thank you, Brian.
Big hammer.
He's now a big hammer guy all the way. I will continue to be throwing big hammers, robos, warbaits, mixing in big Huddlestons. I mean, there's all kinds of things going on the Tennessee River I want to explore yet. I want to do better than, I think I finished 73rd in this tournament. I'll be back.